First thing first, guys. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well, to be honest.
We just came back from a week tour in the US, did 4 awesome shows, including Lollapalooza in Chicago, some great writing sessions in LA.
Yeah, I think we wrote, 6 songs or something.
Yeah, some dope shit.
Well, before we go into the new songs, then I'd like to jump back to the beginning a little bit. And before you met each other, you were already into music. How serious was this?
Well, for me personally, it was pretty serious because I think I was producing for already, 11 or 10 years. Yeah, I was trying and trying and trying. And I worked at a job that I worked 4 days on and 4 days off. And on those 4 days off, I was producing music. So.
Okay.
And I was in music school at the time when we met. So for me, it started as a hobby, and then I thought, hey man, you can go to school for this. So I did study it, and then yeah, we got involved and started working more and more in the studio.
And especially, especially early on, what inspired you to go after music? Did you come from musical families?
Well, I played when I was really young the guitar, okay. But I think like my big
inspiration.
Oh yeah. I think my big inspiration was like Kersten and Armin van Buuren. When I was 16, 17, I went to a lot of like big festivals to see them, and decided after that that I wanted to be a producer, but as well a DJ.
Yeah. For me, I was brought up in a musical way. My dad was like a modern classical composer, which was interesting. So I played instruments from when I was young, but I totally did not get that music, and I'm more from a classical background. So then I gave up for a while when I was like in high school, I think, because you know when you're 14, nobody really cares if you play the violin, doesn't really get you girls. So I thought it was a bit boring. But then I was 18 and I started getting into parties and DJing, and then the whole thing started again.
And I think I'm not exactly sure, but I think for both of you, you started with DJing, just playing shows, and I think a lot of it was also techno early on. So how do you look back at those years? How important were those kind of as your development for where you are now?
Yeah, it's a great way to do up some experience. And the fun thing in Amsterdam and in the Netherlands in general is that there's a lot of underground music going on, and it's a really active scene. And when you start going out, like there's a really great music taste. So yeah, it does give you a dope background into electronic music that we then later turned into combining it with pop music, which we also both really loved. That's actually the reason we started working together, because we were like, well, techno is really cool, but like nobody's doing any vocals, or like, you know, if you talk about melodies, people look at you strange, you know, like, and we thought that was super interesting. So we started combining those beats with like more poppy top lines and songs and anything like that.
That's you mentioned something interesting, because I can imagine in certain parts of scenes in this music industry and culture, pop can be a bad word. So was that one of the reasons why people wouldn't say they liked pop, and that maybe you found each other that way?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I really vividly, like we met each other a couple of times at shows, and like I was organizing techno parties, and I would book him and his brother, who were playing together then, and we were standing backstage at a festival in Amsterdam, really dope festival called Magneet Festival. Yeah. And we were chatting, and we started chatting about plugins. You know, you talk to producers sometimes, but you can kind of know by the plugins somebody's using what kind of music they're making. So usually it was like, oh yeah, 808s and like all this underground stuff that's dope. And then we got to talking about, I don't know if you remember, we talked
Sausage Feather?
Yeah, we were talking about Sausage Feather, the plugin by Dada Life, and I'm pretty sure nobody in techno would ever touch that with a 10-yard stick, you know. And we were like, yeah, Sausage Feather, that shit is great. So we were like, okay, we're into the same type of music. And for me, that was really refreshing, because, you know, I still love techno, but like I love the musicality of more like deep house and the house we're making these days.
Yeah, man.
And I think you started working together as part of a contest, it's a Tiesto Remix contest.
Yeah.
At that time, because I suppose you don't know that much of each other at that point. Let's start with you. What was something that you admired in the way that you approach music?
Well, Jeroen is thinking about like another level than me about music. He's really musical. He's really good in melodies, and yeah, that makes in the end like great songs and great music.
Gee, thanks, man.
and vice versa. What is something that when you first kind of got to know?
I remember very vividly, like, Steven is a fucking go-getter. Like, he does not stop, and like he was like, we would, you know, when you start working with somebody, you say, oh, let's do this, you know, and then it never happened. Steven was like, yes. Like, we were both like, let's get in the studio at 9. Yes, let's try to finish a song within one day. That's what we did with the remix competition. He was like, fuck yeah, let's go. So we started at 9 in the morning and we finished like at 3 o'clock at night, yeah. And then we handed it in and we won. And like, it's pretty crazy. Like, to find somebody that's willing to go as hard as I wanted to go, and for him probably the other way around, that's just great. And still sometimes I have to say, Steven, come on, man, give me a break. And he's like, go, go, go. And I think that's the greatest thing ever.
But you mentioned an interesting thing now, which is kind of the desire to do it. I've interviewed a lot of musicians, and that's one thing that comes up a lot of times when some people are very musical, but they just don't go after it. You have to put that time in.
Yes.
So for you, what is that drive? Where does that come from? Do you know?
Yeah, if I work on something, I want to be the best in it, and try to get the maximum exposure or the maximum reach in it. So that's my drive. And
especially if you look at where you are now, and it always seems very glamorous, but it took a lot of years to get where you are now. So what is one thing or maybe two things that you learned along the way that would turn out very important to what you're doing?
Have patience.
Yeah, that's the first thing I was going to say too. Be a little bit patient and trust in the process. And we can say this right now, seeming very confident and saying, okay, do it, but we doubt about it every day. Like every day we run into something and I'm like, oh my God, like this is going so slow, this is really aggravating. But at the end of the day, if you're working at your craft and you're getting better at it, you know, things will come. Like sometimes it takes a bit longer, but stuff will start forming around you and you'll slowly build up that bowl of crap that you need. I know it's hard to explain.
But I think like we have learned to like have patience. I think also like building a right team around us was really important. And everything takes time. Like I think a few months ago we were questioning like, do we need to put out more content, or do we need to invest more in videos and that kind of stuff. And if we did it like maybe like a year ago, it didn't make like any sense to do it, but we were already questioning it ourselves, like maybe we should do it. But like in the end now we did it like a year later and it makes like much more sense. And like we have this kind of stuff like all the time. And so it's about patience and making the right choices.
And try some stuff, you know, like we've tried a lot of different types of music, and sometimes, you know, somebody said to us, oh, this is not going to work, and it did work. Sometimes people said, this is going to be great, and it wasn't great. Nobody really knows. Just follow your own gut feeling, make some mistakes, try some stuff, and then, yeah.
Can you name me one mistake you made along the way that you've learned from?
Let's think about that.
Yeah.
Because we make a lot of mistakes, like for sure.
But it can be musically as
well.
So,
well, maybe I Wonder is a good example.
Yeah, but it was not a mistake in the end.
It was almost a mistake.
Yeah, but that's the fun part. Like to be honest, I can't remember that with all the choices we made that we thought at the end, well, fuck this.
This was a big mistake. Yeah, it's true.
What Jay and I always do is like we talk a lot about the decisions we make, sometimes too much. But like, I don't know, like I told before, we are just the opposites of each other, even with thinking. So I'm like really black and white with thinking, and Jay's always more like with a helicopter view. And because of that, we always find like a natural middle in the choices we make. And I think because of that, we made the right choices. And I can name one thing that I know from the past 3 years that we shouldn't do different to come, or maybe we should do different, that we could be bigger than we are now.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, sometimes you also won't know, because like there is a lot of the times there is not one right answer. But like in questions of stuff that we learned from, I do think, like for example with I Wonder, we were really, because with I Wonder what happened is we made I Wonder and it was done and we were like, yes, let's go, let's release this. And then we got some feedback from the A&R at that time that said, oh, let's make it a little bit more chill. And we were at first like, what, fuck, we don't want to do this, like we want to do what we want to do. And it turned out like we didn't really feel it in that moment. And then we're still very pragmatic in saying, okay, well, if this is what the label wants, let's roll with it. Because it's better to put out a song than no song. But I think looking back in hindsight, it's also sometimes good to, you know, get influenced by other opinions. Although sometimes it's the other way around.
We can mention the Maroon 5 remix.
Yeah,
like everybody told us like, don't release this remix. It's too much out of your comfort zone, and it's not the hymn. We released it because we thought we should do it, and it had like in 2 weeks 3 million streams on SoundCloud.
And it was our biggest bootleg that we had done at the time. Yeah.
So
no one knows.
So you never know. Yeah.
No, so that's the thing. Like
well,
we are happy that we can make like the right choices, and
yeah.
we don't make big mistakes.
And like the lucky part for us is because we get to talk about it. If something turns out to not give us what we wanted, we will be like, but we really thought about this. So at the end of the day, we had to make a choice, and we really discussed it, and we're still comfortable with losing for the right reasons, you know? Sometimes that's better than winning for the wrong reasons.